into the Cornerstone Integrative Healing Podcast. It's Carrie and Jen here, and we are back for another episode with what I think is a really important topic. Just trying to eat healthy when your life is really full. I don't want to use the word busy because I feel like that's kind of a cop out, right? But when life is full, how do you eat healthy? That's what our topic is today. And I actually did a poll on Instagram recently asking people what was the main like roadblock for them to eating healthier. And time was the number one thing that they chose. So I think today's episode is going to be really helpful for you if you feel like time is something that impacts the way that you are able to nourish your body. And I hope we can give you some maybe different ways of thinking about things and different tips and tricks to help you to just continue to fuel your body well, even when life gets super busy. And we're recording right here in May, and it is a busy month. So I've definitely been using some of these things. I'm
Carrie,
sure you have too.
yes, Carrie's like the rock star though for simple meals, eating healthy and keeping it simple. So yes, you're in for a treat.
I don't know. Sometimes Jen thinks I have boring meals, but that's okay. I don't mind. I'm thinking I'd rather eat nutritionally dense meals than try to make it fancy somehow. It just works better for me. That's just the way my brain thinks.
Right,
My goal a lot of times is I just don't want to eat out. Right.
right.
I'm trying to eat out at the least amount possible. So we eat leftovers a lot. We eat simple meals. So hopefully that can be maybe just a different way for you to think about it if you really struggle in this area.
Yeah, and simple doesn't mean, flavorless or tasteless. There's lots of simple things that we do.
Yeah.
They have a ton of flavor. So, don't tune out because you're like, oh, it's not gonna
No, I mean, I don't eat food that doesn't taste good, okay? It still tastes good. It might just not be a gourmet meal, and
Right.
that's okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, obviously, we're super big on blood sugar because we know how important it is for so many things, sleep and anxiety, our moods and, weight and all that sort of thing. So, even when we're busy, even more so really when we're busy,
Yeah.
we need to make sure that we're fueling ourselves efficiently and consistently. And we just want to make it doable for you.
Yeah. I think sometimes, I was thinking about this topic more as I knew we're gonna be recording this episode, and also because, um, of that poll that I put up. I just thought like I think that whenever we do get busier or our life is full, this is one of the first things that goes, unfortunately. And it really shouldn't be. I'm just thinking if I'm busier and if I know that I'm maybe a little bit more stressed, I know that I need more fuel actually, not less. So it is honestly, if we know that we're going to have busier, weeks or days or even months, like we actually do need to spend maybe a little bit more time preparing so that we have things to grab and go and it actually makes things a lot less stressful, I think, because you're well fueled. You're not always kind of just worrying about what am I going to eat next. You have some things in place. Like for instance, yesterday I went to the kitchen, to the fridge, and I was going to fix lunch, and I really didn't have much. So I kind of relied on some of my more pantry staples that we're going to talk about, and it worked out. Right. I just think that if we have these things in place, it makes it a lot less stressful, and we end up, still feeling well fueled um, and can tackle whatever the day brings. It
Right.
just gives peace of mind too.
Right. Right. Because if you're not feeling, full, literally, um,
Yeah.
you can't serve others. And, I know a lot of us are called to serve our families and we have work.
Yeah.
And so this is it seems simple, but it's a really important piece. And we just want to make it easy, because we know how important it is for your health, for your nervous
Yeah.
system. And that's the majority of what we see. And so, like I said, Kara's kind of a rock star in this. And
No, not really. No, goodness. I think some of the real life struggles, again, going back to just some things that I've heard, it's funny how whenever, of course, we're in this business. And so I overhear conversations, I'm sure you do too, Jen. And I'm just, I hear people just talking about how busy they are. I don't have time to cook. I've been eating out a lot more. And then kind of in that same conversation, I hear them saying, I don't feel great. you know, so it all goes together. So that's a real life struggle, not having time to cook, not feeling like you have time. What about eating the same things all the time? Now, I'll be honest, I do eat a lot of the same things. So that doesn't bother me, but it might bother you. Um, and just relying on snacks, like eating snacks for lunch. To me, that's not like a true meal. I mean, I have to do it every now and then again, but um, relying on snacks or just relying on drive-throughs is definitely something that happens a lot, I think. So I want you to know, like, if you're feeling that way, we've all been there. We might be there right now in some way, shape, or form, but there's no shame in it. It's just you want to kind of be more strategic about really paying attention to how can I set myself up for success, not how do I constantly need to feel like you had this loop running in your head, like, I never have time. I want to do better. I don't feel good. I don't know what to eat. Then you kind of start getting all in your head about food. Um, so we wanted to share just some simple rhythms that can make a really big difference in this area and hopefully give you some different ideas and different ways to think about it. Do you kind of want to go first and just share what your thought process is on like,
Yeah, for sure. So, breakfast, I know a lot of people that I see always talk about intermittent fasting, which I think is great for some women. I would say for the majority of women who are overwhelmed or anxious, intermittent fasting is not a good thing.
yeah,
Eating breakfast within an hour of waking, at the most an hour and a half or 2 hours is a must. So, what we kind of recommend for people is create a go-to breakfast list that you don't have to think about. Things that are maybe easy to grab on the busier mornings. So like hard-boiled eggs, maybe some Greek yogurt, where you're still getting a good amount of protein, but you don't have to think about it. And then other things that might be prepped. You might prep some like hash browns or diced potatoes that you can have with some scrambled eggs in the morning
mhm,
for an easy carb. Fruit is always great in the morning.
yeah,
A really good quality. We have a farm nearby, so we're sort of lucky. A really good quality like sausage or bacon that you can prep ahead of time and just
mhm,
sort of heat up. So I will sometimes make like a chia seed pudding. I have a chocolate one in the refrigerator right now, just with some coconut milk, chia seed, and some cocoa powder. You can put some protein powder in that to pack it a little bit more, and just top it with some fruit. I know Carrie loves her granola, a little bit of, whole food carbs, so you can
yeah,
make like a nice granola. Um, Something that you have on hand in the refrigerator that's quick and if you need it. And then on the mornings that can be maybe a little bit more relaxed, you can, warm up something or make some scrambled eggs or Carrie, you want to talk about your go-tos? Leftover dinner
yeah,
is another one that
yeah,
well,
that's
I
true.
always talk about. I will eat leftovers for breakfast. And don't think about just breakfast foods, even for your kids. I used to make my kids chicken nuggets in the morning for breakfast, like the good quality, like Bell and Evans. It was like real chicken. Like that's what I would make them for breakfast because they would eat it and it was protein. And I was like,
Yeah,
done and done with some fruit. So it was super easy. So don't just think about breakfast foods either.
yeah. I love those ideas, and I do a lot of the same things. I mean, I'm very much a creature of habit, so I usually have eggs and some sort of fruit. Um, and usually leftover meat or some other sort of protein to go with it because you have to think if the goal is 30 grams of protein, 2 eggs is not going to get you there,
Right.
so you have to add something else to that. So my go-to's for extra protein, on top of the 2 eggs that I typically eat, would be like leftover meat and or putting protein powder in some yogurt or putting protein powder in chia seed pudding whenever I make that. And so that'll get you to about 30 grams. And so I also put collagen in my coffee. And so that will get you a little bit further, but you don't want to rely on those things to get the full, 30 grams. I like to get some whole food protein mixed with, if I do protein powder and something else. But a lot of clients that I talk to, they just literally don't have time, or they're not making time, I guess I should say, to actually cook eggs in the morning. So what I'll suggest is that they make a simple breakfast casserole that they can just heat up, or you could make a frittata, which is just you could do that on the stovetop. But literally, a breakfast casserole could include some. brown sausage or some type of meat. I've used chopped up ham before, and eggs. And if you're okay with dairy, you could put some cheese on that. Super easy. And then you can add, if you have veggies, you can definitely add whatever else you want to in there. But it can literally be as simple as those three ingredients, and just cook it on the weekend. And then there's your breakfast, the whole week. And you could just add like some fruit or something to that. Really easy. That would literally take you like 5 minutes to warm up in the morning. So if you feeling like, okay, I just don't have time to cook something in the morning, definitely do that. Or like the hard boiled eggs, like Jen said. I like a warm breakfast in the morning, but you might feel differently about that. I just like to heat something up and eat it in the morning versus cold. Um, but yeah, those are definitely my go-tos. There's tons of other things, but just keep it simple, and until you get in the routine, and then you might could change it up depending on what you have in your kitchen or fridge or whatever. I'm really big about using everything that's in my fridge. I think it's like a fun game actually. Um, so I like to figure out how I can be really creative with what I have to make, lunch, dinner, whatever. So we might can
Yeah.
talk about that on another episode.
For sure.
Well, what about
Um,
lunch? What do you usually do for lunch?
I always usually have some sort of tuna salad, chicken salad. Sometimes I'll make egg salad, but I usually have eggs for breakfast. But or I'll just do some ground beef with taco seasoning or something. I usually have one of those prepped because I just like to grab and go for lunch. I always eat pickles. So just for some fermented stuff, and usually a raw carrot I'll have, and then fruit and some. I know it's a little bit processed, but I'll usually have some gluten-free pretzels too. I just like them.
Mhm.
So that is usually some starch, but potatoes, I'll have leftover potatoes, usually if we have them the night before, or rice, commonly too. So potatoes, rice, or some gluten-free pretzels are my go-tos just for the carbs. But deli meat, I'll get some good turkey, deli meat, nitrate-free, organic, and have that I love that rolled up with some tomatoes and olive oil and salt, pepper, yum. So I do that
Mhm.
very often. Um, or again, dinner leftovers. I just had hamburgers yesterday for lunch, from the day before. I'll
Yeah.
also, because I try to get in seafood, several times a week, I'll do some canned oysters that I just get at Trader Joe's. Um, or I like to sometimes I'll just prepare a bag of shrimp. And I'll mix it with some mayo and sriracha, avocado oil mayo, and some sriracha, salt and
Mhm.
pepper. And then just put some like it's a mix from Trader Joe's. It's got like sesame seeds and nori seaweed, and I'll put that on top, and that will be my protein. It's just so easy to make. I can make that shrimp in literally 10 minutes, frozen
Yeah.
to done, literally.
Mhm.
So yeah, just some sort of easy protein, and fruit, gluten-free pretzels, or leftover potatoes or rice.
Yeah. Those are definitely some of the things that I typically do too. I usually try to do leftovers. Whenever I feel like I don't have leftovers is typically when I turn to something like this in my pantry, or, like tuna salad or even chicken salad with some crackers and fruit and veggies and things like that. Now, one of the things that you could think about, two things I'll offer you is um, making like topping a salad with whatever leftover protein you have. That's just an easy thing to do, is to kind of think about just to change it up, because sometimes you don't want to eat exactly the same thing. So putting it over greens and making it into more of a salad is like an easy way to make it a little bit different. And then also thinking about a stir fry. So if you have maybe some different things that didn't really go together but are from different meals that you don't know what to do with, you could always put them like rice, to do some type of rice, potatoes, or um, pasta, and then put whatever protein you have. And then I always like to have olives and sun-dried tomatoes and artichoke hearts in the fridge so that I can put those in with the stir fry. And it just makes it a little bit different than whatever you might have had the day before or the night before. So that's a really easy thing that I do a lot of times as well, just make a stir fry out of whatever's in there. Um, so yeah, hopefully those are some good ideas for you to get you, because I know a lot of the people that I talk to as well, like the clients, maybe they have lunch and dinner down, but they tend to snack during lunch and don't really eat a full meal. And honestly, that I'll keep asking them questions, and they're on it. They don't really ever get full at lunch, so then they feel like they just want to snack all afternoon. Which, again, if you're going more than 4 hours, you probably do need a snack in the afternoon. But you should be full for at least 2.5, 3 hours after a meal if you've eaten enough. So if you find yourself, constantly hungry in the afternoon, you might not be eating enough for lunch. So maybe you can use some of these tips to
Yeah, and
eat a
and
little bit more.
cooking extra protein at dinner is always a good idea. I will do that. Like I'll chicken breast. I make this chicken thighs, like it's like a lemon chicken thigh, and I always make tons of those.
Yeah.
'Cause the kids like them. They last. You can make it into something else if you need to, like a stir fry, like Carrie said, which I often do.
Yeah.
I'll put it on wraps, those siete wraps, with some salsa and cheese. So
Hmm.
it's easy.
Yeah. I mean, if I had to offer one suggestion, like if you just feel like you really don't ever have anything in the fridge and you're just kind of wondering where to start with cooking more protein at dinner. Maybe you're cooking a meal, but you also put a whole chicken in the crock pot or something so she can have that to eat, different ways throughout the week. Or maybe like Jen said, you just cook more of whatever protein you're cooking. So that way you can use it in different ways throughout the week. That's a really easy thing that you can do. Um, and I was actually just talking to someone the other day that's like, I literally don't know how to cook. And I was like, but you know how to cook, you know how to like ground beef, or you know how to like put some stuff in the crock pot. Like you do know how to cook. You might not know how to cook well, but cooking doesn't have to be complicated. Like literally put a whole chicken with some salt and pepper, whatever seasoning in their crock pot with a little water and just set it for 8 hours and you're going to have protein and you can put that with whatever else you have. So I think sometimes we make it way too complicated and I don't know, maybe that's just my brain. I don't want to overcomplicate it because that's just silly, right?
Yeah. Carrie's
um,
really good at keeping it simple. Carrie, do you want to talk just about real quick what like some really quick proteins that you usually stock or have?
yeah, so I always have a whole chicken typically in either cooked or in the, freezer that I can put in the crock pot. I like to have chicken thighs. I love to do those, or either chicken breast cut up. I'll just saute those. In the actual pantry, I typically have some tuna. Sometimes I'll have shredded beef in a little packet that you can get that's higher quality from Thrive Market. You can also get canned chicken from there if you really need something super quick. Beans are also a good, source of protein. I would pair those with like an animal protein, but that can bulk up meals. Quinoa cooked or lentils is another idea for you. And like Jen said, shrimp. I always have shrimp on hand in the freezer, and that's super easy. I mean, that's like one of the quickest meals you can make is shrimp. So those are
Yeah.
just some ideas.
Yeah, and the seafood, a lot of people are like, "Well, I don't have time to get seafood." It's like I said, it's easier than you think, and seafood is actually super nutritionally dense.
Yeah,
So if you can, emphasize nutrient dense foods, which are quick. So eggs, super nutrient dense and quick. Animal proteins, as we said, that's a little bit harder, but you do have to think a little bit ahead. But even if it's frozen, if you have a pressure cooker, you can go from frozen to a meal in a couple hours. So
yeah,
animal fats, animal protein, and pair it with something easy like pickles, excuse me, which is fermented. For something quick. Again, it doesn't have to be complicated, and have the saturated fats on hand so you can avoid the seed oil. So, butter, coconut oil, tallow, which is beef fat. If you can get some nice grass-fed tallow, those are easy to have on hand to saute something quick with.
yeah,
And then salt all your foods liberally.
yeah, for
Good
sure.
unrefined. We like Redmond's real salt, or the
Hmm.
Celtic salt.
Yeah, yeah. So hopefully that gave you some ideas. Let us know if you have any questions or comments, or if you try some of these things. Tag us on Instagram and show us your different meals. We didn't talk a lot about snacks, but we actually do have a free opt-in that you can, free PDF, I should say, that we'll send you if you'll give us your name and email. We'll send it over to your inbox, and it just gives you some ideas of how to pair protein with some good carbs as snacks, because obviously we're typically going to need 1 to 2 snacks a day between meals to make sure that our blood sugar stays stable. So we'll put that link for you in the description of this podcast episode. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys on the next one.